first item on the agenda is to receive any apologies for absence.
Yes, I've had apologies from Councillor Best, Councillor Fuller, Councillor Humphreys and Councillor Peel.
And nearly mine.
Right. Well, this might get interesting for once. Declarations of interest. Receive any declarations of interest from members and officers under Section 50 of the Local Government Act 2000, Standards 35 and 36. Firstly, any disclosable pecuniary interests. Now, I reckon that anybody who owns a property remotely near anything that is either designated for development, retention as an open space, or virtually anything, would have to declare an interest.
Excuse us laughing at the chair.
In which case, I'll just start here and work my way around the room. Councillor Chester.
I think these are actually, I was told that this, if you owned a property in Oundle, it will be an other interest.
Other interest, rather.
If you are next to a potential site, it will be a pecuniary interest and you will have to leave.
Presumably at the point at which that particular site is discussed, otherwise everybody's going to have to apply for a dispensation and we'll never get anywhere.
Okay,
Well,
I have a question to ask. Is this red check stuff a potential site then?
Yeah.
Right, and I'm just there. That's me. Is that near enough?
No,
Next door but
not
two?
needed.
No, it's not that near.
Yep,
Unless you own the land.
Can I,
That,
It's not needed unless you own the land.
is Herne Road.
I know it is.
So
That's
you're
me.
you're
That's me. That's my house. It's big enough to
yeah,
be
well,
petrol.
but the thing is, the question here,
That's
Shirley, has
That's
got,
my back gate on Herne Road, and that's the side.
but
And
I would
if
have
you
thought
want
we
to
were a fair
close,
way from it.
do you want to close this meeting while we have this discussion?
I don't want to get it wrong.
can I just say, I mean, the word remotely is the interesting word, isn't it? I mean, what does remote mean? How far away
Right.
do you have to be?
I think I should take the clerk's advice because we seem to be getting off to a difficult start.
Yes?
Shall we come back to
Close
order?
the meeting until we've resolved the issues. Now, it
About-
seems to me, and start with Councillor Chester, any interests to declare?
Only the one where I have a house in Oundle.
Same for me.
So, Member Oakes,
Same thing. Same thing.
and I will declare another interest, not on the basis of the ownership of any land in Oundle, but since I sit also in connection with the Blackthorn plan, I think I should simply refer to the fact that I do. It doesn't have any direct bearing on anything in the parish.
I think you must do that because that will be a judicial review in future.
Ooh. Ooh.
So, that seems to have taken care of the interests disposable and other. The next item on the agenda is to receive the draft neighbourhood plan. Perhaps as we have two people present, you would like to introduce yourselves and then I'm simply going to hand the floor over to you. I believe everybody has had the opportunity, at any rate, to read the draft document.
No, not long enough.
Well, it's come out. Whether everybody's had a chance to read it in any detail, I don't know. But at least
You've actually sent the design statement out as well, haven't you?
Definitely.
Yes,
the design statement went out last night.
Just not
So
long enough.
let me kick off then. Firstly, tonight you have Mark Benz and myself, Phil Stone, representing the working group developing the neighbourhood plan. The other two on the working group are both abroad, Stuart Fraser and Mark Felton, who would have been here had they not found an excuse to get out of it. So we are, if you like, the working group that's been struggling to get this all together over the last 10 years.
Yep.
We have given you for tonight 3 sets of documents. One are the set of maps, and that's the first thing we'll look at. Then the actual neighbourhood plan itself, and the other document we've issued is the design statement. Beyond all of that, and it's all in here, is the work that we have done to support our decisions, the information. There's probably 500 pages.
Be a bit more accurate.
I
I
think-
think what we've done is we've given you a summary of the
Of some of
work
the documents.
that is there. There is a plethora of files. It's all recording on a Dropbox, but we just, you can have that whenever you wish, but it is just
But
phenomenal.
that is to
information.
support the major documents that you've seen and will discuss tonight. If you want to delve into more detail, we can accommodate it on here, not on the screen, unfortunately. So, we started the neighbourhood plan with what was called a village plan over 10 years ago, when I got really asked about all the complaints about Creed Road and developments as being ENC fault, my fault. Why can't we stop it? Why can't we have infrastructure? You remember all the noises. And at that stage, I went to the planners and said, what can we do as a town? You keep doing this, and it will happen more to Arundel because people want to live here, people want to build here, naturally. And so we developed what was then known as a village plan. That morphed into the 2020 plan, and we built that one up over the years, but then in 2010, that morphed into the neighbourhood plan alternative, and the village plan disappeared. That was based upon the government's democratisation of planning, particularly, of developing growth, a sustainable nature in towns and villages. So what it meant, it turned it round. Instead of the government deciding and telling us what we need to have in our towns, we had the opportunity, particularly with the neighbourhood plan, to tell them what we wanted, and it would have a very good weight in planning law, and therefore would be built into ENC's district-wide plan, which is coming out later in the year, which replaces Arnott. Arnott came down from the government via the core spatial strategy, via regional groups, to us, this is what you will do. This time, as far as Arundel is concerned, what we have here will go up through the channels to built into our district plan and then form a major part of what we're doing. Nearly every other town in East Northants area, and there are 7, 6 of them are doing neighbourhood plans or have done neighbourhood plans. Thrapston is the only one that hasn't. And as David said earlier on, lots of the villages around here are doing them or doing something like them. So we are guided very much by the core spatial strategy. That is a government provided document put out through the joint core spatial strategy unit, and it does give overall to regions what the government wants in terms of housing growth, green spaces, all the things that we've been talking about, all the things that are in the Arnott plan. So we started by working with that, and that morphed into a re-adopted core spatial strategy 2, which was adopted last year, which has changed things again. We're perhaps the only neighbourhood plan that actually is up to date with the latest core spatial strategy. Those that have gone through aren't, and in fact all those that have been passed wouldn't now pass muster because they don't have any sustainability movements in them. So what is a neighbourhood plan? I could find no better phraseology than put out by East Northants when we started this escapade. They are town parish-led council projects prepared by the community. The neighbourhood plan should identify or could identify specific sites and areas for new development, set out policies for development and design, and promote more development if they wish to do so than is in the local plan. Our neighbourhood plan is now 2011 to 2031. So it takes the place, the moment this is done and sorted, it takes the place of the Arnold plan. That goes out the window. as being the planning document. There are pros and cons of a neighbourhood plan, I don't think we need to go into those. But we could have done other alternatives, we don't need those either. So, we arrive at today, where, as I said earlier, if we agree this plan, it will get fed into the district plan, which E&C is preparing, and therefore will have a great deal of weight in planning law, so that we can, if you like, stop developers from building what they want, where they want, how they want, and with whatever cheap housing they can put up. We can and do have the power within these sorts of plans to curtail that sort of difficulty. One of the main things that we've tried to do, unlike most others, is we've been site specific. Most neighbourhood plans aren't. It's quite complicated, it's the reason why we've probably taken, you've even gone grey as well. It's taken a lot more time to get it sorted. But what we decided on your behalf, if you like, is that we would have specific sites earmarked for the housing, and we would develop those developers as partners with us in what we're trying to achieve. In other words, there won't be arguments, as well, there may well be, but there shouldn't be arguments later on about, oh, we want 5,000 houses there and we've agreed to give them 10. There shouldn't be that sort of argument, and also at the same time, we were able to discuss and develop those developers along the lines of getting town benefits. We have a festival site, we have an enhanced cemetery, we have a play group area at the top, we have contributions to the cycle path that we envisage around the town. Those sorts of things we have an agreement with each developers at. I think it's probably right that we have a town meeting in the not too distant future where these developers are asked to attend as partners and describe their site and what they plan to do. But that's part of what I think the final part of the agenda gets to. So, back to tonight, and the meat of the show is the actual neighbourhood plan. But before we start that, so you can see what's what and where's where, let's look at the map. So I'll hand over to Mark to talk us through the various maps that I hope you've all got in front of you.
Right, I'm going to point you to two maps in particular, the proposed recreation route and the preferred housing sites. I think the other three, one is a general draft plan, which is just an amalgamation of some, and the others are really two evidence based. So the other two are important, but I think for this evening's meeting, if we focus on two, that will give us all a chance to digest what we're looking at. And if we start with the proposed recreation route, if you've got that, part of there's faces in the group here that have been involved in the Neighbourhood Plan 2020 throughout, and part of the evidence that we all had to put together was to consider things like recreation, town centre, and connectivity. That was three areas. Now, each of those groups, working parties, highlighted certain areas that they felt were very important. There was evidence from the town, there were surveys, there was feedback, and from that, the group put forward a proposal some years ago to consider a cycle and pedestrian route effectively around the town. And this linked together some existing routes, created some new routes primarily through future proposed housing development sites, and also there were some areas that we just felt we would love to link up. That is really important to consider. There is a lot of benefit that one is trying to get here. This works on health and well-being, which you'll see in the draft plan. It also aids tourism. People will come here, they will cycle around the town, they will then come in for coffees, tea, shopping, markets and the like. Highlighted in the town centre initiatives that we put forward, and also recreational. Oundle is pretty good recreationally wise. It's well looked after. However, for Mr and Mrs Bloggs down the road, actually to get on their bike or walk around the town and actually visit Snipe Meadow and look at other areas where they wouldn't normally, they can actually connect now.
And not use the car.
And not use the car. So I think that in itself, and that we indicatively have shown the red lines on the drawing. That's what we and the town believe is a sensible approach and would be very, very exciting as an outcome in the forthcoming years. On the second map that I refer to, for preferred housing sites, you'll see on the bottom there is a small key, housing sites still awaiting development, in bright puce pink. Those are housing developments. There's a Herne Road development that's obviously being developed at the moment, carrying on. You've got the other two sites that are working, and there's also a couple of sites that have not developed at all at the moment, and they're probably run out of time or running out of time.
One of them doesn't want to do it, and the other we can't contact the owner.
Yeah. So it was important that we put those on because it does show the true reflection of development in Oundle. The checked sites are the sites that we have extrapolated from all of the information that we've received from the town, all of our evidence, and just general discussions over the years. That's what we've formulated. In the draft plan, you will see there are numbers applied to those. The idea was for the town, or the town's wishes were very much about displacement around the town, not one big development. Concerns about the infrastructure, as in roads, highways, footways, not to overload certain areas. So that's how this has come up, along with, as Phil pointed out, the SHLA, the spatial strategies, all of the various documentation the government and local authority have supplied to us. There is as I said, there's a plethora of information. There's a huge amount of information. We've put on the key elements on the memory stick here, which we'll leave with you, and hopefully that will support what we're putting forward and give you the confidence that what we've put together stands a very, very good chance of going forward, and it's the right way for the town. I think that's really
fine.
I'm quite happy to ask questions on these, as we go through, but I think we should not remain specific, whatever we do. It's about a global approach to the town.
Just one point on the cycle route. We thought about a cycle route to start with for Oundle because I'm on the Port Greenway board, which is a cycle route from down south up to Peterborough. We are getting, and we've got to Thrapston, and the next stage is to get to Oundle and then north. So that will be a cycle track, a walking track, where people could just go on it and go and have a picnic or just take the families out on bikes. But beyond that now, we have Deanthorpe coming up, who've agreed to put in a cycle track from Deanthorpe into Oundle somewhere. So it fits into here. We started work on the route north, just out of town, where we've got a couple of local farmers who are happy to do the work and allow land to be used. So we're building very much a cycle walking route. The kids can also go to school rather than take cars. It's very much traffic oriented, although of course we don't sell it from that point of view. But it means that the kids can bike around from schools and things and don't use the cars, and it will help with congestion. So that's all I would add just to your...
One final thing to add about the map, very important, the concentric rings, if you've wondered what they are, they're quarter-mile markers. It was made very early doors, even back at 2020, that development should remain within a mile radius of the centre of Oundle, and yes, the centre is Market, the monument on Market.
Can I ask which is the parish boundary, the thick blue line or the thin blue line?
It is the, let me see which one we've got here.
Because I can't see it on a key.
It is the thinner of the
Anyway.
two blue
It's
lines.
the fat one, sorry, isn't it?
So what's the fat one?
Sorry, it's
One's
the
a
thin
parish
one.
boundary.
Sorry, it's the. Oh, hang on. Which way round are we?
Yes,
One's
but
a
that's
ward
not what I'm
boundary.
talking about. I'm talking about this thick one.
Well,
The thick one.
Yes.
Seriously.
There are two
Yeah.
blue lines.
I think the reality is that
So it's
that
the
one.
thicker of the two blue
The thinner-
lines
the thinner-
marks the current
the thinner
settlement
blue line
boundary.
is the town
It's the
boundary.
thinner is the
Yeah,
town
and the
boundary.
thinner one is the parish boundary.
The clue to it is on site 23, you'll see the number 23 at the top of the page on the north. Part of
Yeah.
the site that was brought forward is within
Yes.
the boundary and part is in Blackthorn.
Yeah, right.
And you'll see that's why it's sliced in two, and that's the key.
So the thick blue line just
Is the
comes
town-
behind the
Current
town.
settlement boundary.
Yeah,
Thick one is the town, I think.
yeah, okay.
It's a settlement
Just
boundary.
not
Yeah,
on
settlement
the,
boundary.
not on the key, the
Which
town
doesn't
can
come
see
really
it
into this.
anywhere.
So can I just ask a question? So in terms of, maybe it's a bit specific at this stage, but numbers 1 and 3,
Yes.
which are around the Prince William School area.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was reading through the draft plan was about the flows of traffic through the town. Is there anywhere in the plan that describes how we can actually, because all of that traffic will be going to the school and it'll all be coming through the main highways. Is there any way that we can direct this plan so that, or point at highways at it so that we can get some opening from the 605 into that area rather
It's a
than routing?
major fault in the plan if we can't.
Well,
Major.
Shall we cover that one? We can cover that. We had a transport study carried out in terms of density of properties within Oundle, or on the outskirts of Oundle in lots of different areas. That transport study was independent. We funded it, or our town council funded it, and it suggested that there would be no increased traffic congestion. That's
When was this?
2 years, 3 years ago, 2 years
2
ago.
years, I'd say.
2 years ago.
Between 2 and
14.
There's a perception, because obviously when there's a hiatus of traffic, as in the school, there's always a problem. I live on South Road and I have to wait there 10 minutes sometimes when 27 buses come down. Then it's cleared and there's never a problem for the rest of the day. And it has to be taken over there's a certain study period they look at. So they did that test. There were rumours and we did try to talk to Northamptonshire County and also Highways
Yeah.
about coming off the 605. The Prince William School at the time was not interested. They did not want access there. And
But why? That's
That's the point.
That's the
That
protection of
survey
children.
was done in response to what the town council, because I was,
Yeah, but
As
the school
involved in
the
didn't want
school
it.
did not want
Do-
children
do-
coming in.
Do you
but
know?
that was
And
what it
also
was
the road
about.
is going to be a
But
trunk
that's
road in
before
future.
there were two sites identified
No.
to increase the traffic.
It was, they just did not want it because
Well,
their
there's not
children
awful
couldn't be.
houses on those sites, there's not big numbers. The Persimmon site only is 40 odd houses, means driving through
Yeah, but
Ashton
it's-
Estate.
Oh, it was 95 the original one down the bottom there.
But there's also
95, I thought originally.
Yes, but we cut them down to 40.
million.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to do it because nobody's
Can I-
putting enough
No,
numbers.
nobody would put the link in,
Why?
and the school didn't want it.
Then I
Why,
think I
can I
would
ask,
have to
why
say
didn't
that
the school want it? What was the
Protection
reason?
of the children. They said it's because it's outside of their boundary and dropping off the children and allowing them to walk 20 metres or 50 metres to the school boundary means that they've got a schedule of risk, or there's a risk element, whereas they have to come into the site and they couldn't come into the site.
But you see, there is also still another site there on Herne Road, that big one that's already awaiting completion of development. So it's that quantity of houses, those two
That
quantities
was
of
taken
houses,
into account on the
plus the
transport study.
expanded schools.
That's already been built, the 173.
No, they were all taken into consideration on the transport study.
But you
There is
see,
the transport
Yeah.
studies within the evidence base.
there's,
And,
there's land either side of the track. The left side of the track was Persimmon, who put in an application for 95. And of course, a former councillor, who's a great friend of mine, has got land on the right-hand
Well,
side.
2020 and the Neighbourhood group wanted to put a roundabout in on 605.
Yeah.
The logic is, bring all the coaches in, all the buses in, bring the children in that way. The school refused. So there's no point, it was no point in going any further, and Highways would
No,
not
no,
necessarily
I-
support it on cost.
But I don't believe that survey was done after these
Yeah.
two sites were identified.
It
That's
was.
what I'm trying to say.
Well, it's because their brief was to look at those sites.
Well, remember there were two traffic surveys,
Yes.
and the second survey did look at all
Yeah.
the potential development
And they
sites.
gave them
I
specific
went one
Horrific.
stage further. The only real comment it made about a possibly negative impact was if the site to the north of Benefield Road
Right.
was developed completely
Yes.
up to its potential maximum capacity, which is somewhere around 350
I thought it was about
houses, the size of the site.
350, I think, yeah.
Then it was felt that there could be issues coming into town down the Benefield Road when you get to around the Jesus Church and so on.
Yep.
But that's really the only adverse comment that emerged, and that took into account each and every one of the other development sites.
And that site you referred to as well actually took on board the new Deanthorpe development. That was one of its principal concerns. It wasn't necessarily this in isolation. It takes all of the traffic from the surroundings and how they travel through the town.
And as I said the other day, that I've got the Deanthorpe travel programme, the numbers of cars it's likely to mean, and what it won't mean a great deal to us. If we attract them, we might, but they'll be going on the A43 out of town.
We hope.
Well, I think there'll be a lot of noise from the community about this. I think there's going to be a lot of problems about this.
It may help the growth of the
Massive.
town commercially.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I know the studies have been done and that sort of thing, but when you think all of that going up through St Osyth's,
Yeah.
down North Road or East Road, roads that are not, I mean, it's going to
We
be,
have to be pragmatic.
it's going to
That's
raise a
all we
lot of
can do.
problems.
It would be nice and easy for us to put all these houses on one site, which we could have done easily to the west of the town, but that's not what the town wanted.
I think
It
the other
was
thing
lots
to
more
look at as well, which is really important, look at the concentric circles there. Those two sites fall within that, which puts them on a very high priority compared with other sites.
Yeah,
They are in walking distance, comfortable walking distance of the town centre.
yeah.
If you did not have a new neighbourhood plan, or if we didn't, because it's us, it's not us against, it's all of us. If we do not have one, those sites will be developed. That is almost, we can more or less guarantee it. So irrespective, but they could have more on there, and there's nothing the town can do about it.
I understand that.
And that's the,
But I think I read also in the draft plan that I think our obligation is 203 between now and 2031, 203 new houses. And now I noticed the total is 312 in the overall plan. Is that not correct?
Yes, no, you're correct. You're correct in one thought and not in the other. It's a bit made complex in that in the original Arnott plan we had 610 houses. Those are being built or have been built or are about to be built. Or in the case of 70 of the houses on the two sites that haven't come up for with applications, they won't have any houses on them. That was the figure that we were going to have until 2021 within the Arnott plan, 610. And what they've done, they've changed the mines and made that a rolling figure. So they cancelled it all out and started again and said, right, from now till 2031, we want a matter of 256,
Yeah.
but 40 odd have been built. That's why it comes down, and it always will come down. So, whilst the minimum we were told by the core spatial strategy when we worked out the numbers was 250, that's the number that we were working on, that the core spatial strategy is a minimum we have to have in the town, otherwise the plan would never get through. And that's what we worked on all the way through. That's come down to 203 because some have already been built.
Okay. But the plan is actually, for all these sites, the total is 312 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wonder whether we can...
Well, we've
I think we just have to sort of be very cognizant of what's going to be happening when the public see this, and I mean, I'm uncomfortable with that. I'm uncomfortable.
but there is a
with that.
trade-off, and I think that's why it's important that I actually started with the cycle and recreation route. That
Yeah.
will not happen if development doesn't occur. The town centre will struggle moving forward. It helps by having more people in the town. There is also, obviously, the trend of the government, which is the sideline here. The trend is to increase housing.
Absolutely.
So, whilst we could quite easily knock out a couple of sites and try and justify it, because we've got to go all the way back through the evidence and say, this is it, it doesn't stop development. this has a good way of controlling development, and I think we've got to look at it. That numbers are almost semantics, dare I say. It is
The 300 number is very small in comparison to what others are having to do.
I understand
Because we started with a big number at 610, and we did well by getting 400 odd, 200 odd, whatever it was.
The big issue is infrastructure. Granted, I think this is great. I think that's good.
The issue will be you will
conditions
not
of
be
the
able
road.
to demonstrate the infrastructure because we've already done that on your behalf by taking a transport study, and nobody's going to support you. So ultimately, I say the town will not be able to defend itself because you'll get as many independent reports and they'll say there isn't a problem. So it's a little bit, you sort of have to...
Yeah, I mean, every transport study we've ever had from all the sites that have been developed has never had an issue transport-wise.
Because there isn't one. I mean, I do
Well,
these every day and
there isn't
a
one.
traffic problem in
Can I
Epping.
just say, the only reason there is a problem is because people have been used to just going through there on a horse and cart and whatever else. All of a sudden, they now have to queue behind two people and they think that's a traffic jam.
Well, we've done what we can. We've got the cycle route so that people can get into town, if they choose to, by walking and cycling. That will leave the cars at home. That's what we've done to start with. A lot of the cycle route will be paid for because we've got the route organised around the development sites, that when we allow these guys to build their houses, they will give us Section 106 money or give us land to pay for the cycle traffic. So it's all linked in together, and this is what we spent the last 6 months doing.
See, the other issue though is that you could go mental with this, couldn't you? Because, I mean, my wife and
I think we already have.
well, there we go. But my wife and I went to Hamilton Island and everybody drives around there on golf carts. They just do. I mean, you could actually go quite mad with this and say you're not allowed to take a car in. You've got to, you have to.
I would. I don't want electric cars in town.
I think the important...
You get the general idea.
Well,
I'm saying is that I'm not trying to be difficult. Really. I'm just saying that we stayed on Hamilton Island, which is in New Zealand, off the Whitsundays, and there's nothing on there that you're allowed to drive unless it's a golf cart.
I think the important thing to remember is that this is a guide. This is a structure of the way forward. It's not to the number, to the T exactly. If you do not have something, if the town, I think saying if you don't, it's like we're one of the same. If the town does not have a mechanism, there is no way of controlling anything. And there's no way that Phil and I would put a £5 or put his Werther. He wouldn't put a Werther on the numbers because there could be 10 more, there could be 100 more, there could be 50 less. We can't put that on. All we're doing is saying we believe, based on all the evidence, those are the numbers that could work.
And they're sustainable.
Yeah. If we go too close to the bone, this is another thing that's important, and Sean told us this from ENC. So, for instance, if it is 203, if we took it down to 204 or 203, it's not realistic. You need to be on the plus side of it to show that you are not anti-development, because if you show you're anti-development, you won't get through either. It's a balance. Everything is a fine balance. So, we've put it together on our best evidence that we could actually find and prepare.
We had Maroon Planning assisting us with this, which was a paid-for thing by ENC because they got a grant to get Maroon to do this for us, and they worked it all out on all sorts of charts, millions of charts that I couldn't begin to understand. Sure that Mark did.
So
it's had a lot of work behind it all.
So are we saying that with the figures you've come up with, we can actually protect ourselves from overdevelopment?
The idea is, yes, you have the best chance of doing that. I would say that. I don't think you can ever write it off because the government can change its mind any time.
They already have.
But within the framework of the government.
If someone comes along that's not in the neighbourhood plan with the development that we haven't got as a site for ourselves, we have a perfect right, I'm speaking both for ENC, we have a perfect right to turn it down.
Okay.
Because it's not what the town wished, and the site either, we looked at lots of sites and rejected them for various reasons, so therefore the sites aren't that good. The ones that we chose from the 7 that have come through have ticked the boxes. There's no sea turtles and no great crested newts, and there's no cordon sanitaires or whatever to affect them. No. before
No,
you start.
I was going to ask our chair of planning. You know that we put up objections and they just get overruled anyway.
But this is
I don't
this
think
is a
that-
different situation. This
Right?
is not like commenting on a planning application where we have a right to be consulted and we can express a view. This is us kind of trying to draw up the planning rules of the game in the first place.
We would have started the applications by this document.
Yeah. And Mark's right. If you have the document, you do at least have a sporting chance of trying to force developers to comply with it. Can't guarantee that they won't try appealing decisions and maybe they'll persuade
As you know,
inspectors.
we've already had lots of that.
We've
But-
had two of them already at least.
But it's also worth noting that in relation to Site 1, for example,
Site one.
Site 1 is the development of Ashton Road,
Yeah.
Strokes and Christopher's Drive. That was the subject of a planning application by Persimmon for 90 odd houses. It was not allocated in RNOTP, and effectively as a result of that, when it came before ENC, it was turned down. Off it went on appeal, and ENC were able to show, A, it's not allocated, and B, it's not necessary because we have a 5-year land supply. And the combination of the two things led to that application being refused on appeal. And in essence, it's that scenario that gives me some encouragement to think if we have a plan in place which allocates sites and numbers for sites, there is at least a reasonably sporting chance that that will actually drive development over the plan period. And I think that's the best that we can say.
Furthermore to that, and this is really, really important, and this is, I think we're a slightly unique neighbourhood plan, that
Absolutely.
we've looked at multiple developers, multiple sites. Majority of neighbourhood plans look at 1 or 2, maybe 3 sites. They're very non-specific as well. They keep it very open and then let the planners deal with it. What we've done is we've already consulted with all of the developers. We've actually got tacit approvals from each of them that will stick to the numbers that we have discussed with them.
What are the names of the developers?
They're all in the document. I'm not.
They're all in the plan, the maps and things are all in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all.
There's 7 sites and 6 developers.
I can probably take you through them from memory in due course.
Yeah.
That's
But the importance is that they are content with the numbers. They are also content with the benefits to offer to the town, and they should be taken forward. If this goes forward, if you do take this forward, it's important to take them forward all the way through, because then I think again you're safeguarding those sites as best as you can. And in planning terms, it's a good to have that relationship will be good, but you know there's never you can't guarantee anything.
Can I just ask you why it's say site number 1, only half of it's filled with preferred housing site and there's a big area?
Just purely on numbers.
Because we only allowed them 45 houses rather than 95.
Okay, so 95 would take up the whole
I think
area.
there's 1,200 or 2,000 houses applied.
If we don't have a neighbourhood plan,
1200.
we've got 1,200 applications to come
Really?
in Oundle.
So
And that would be places like 15S, for example, there's no...
Yeah, 15 in will take, what, 400 or 500 houses?
Oh,
Sorry, yeah. No,
At least probably.
Yeah.
15M would take 300 or 400, yeah.
Yeah.
But the idea was that it was a apportionment. There was very little between the
Okay.
sites. They
All
all,
right, I understand.
when you go through, if
Okay.
you look at all the gating factors, all the various ways in which we looked at the evidence, there's very little difference. You can't say one is a lot better than the other or one is even better than the other. They're all of equal merit. So it was sort of we tried to displace a little bit more evenly.
Have we particularly taken out, for example, the marina, because it's just not in the parish boundary?
Yeah.
Is that the reason? Thank you.
What I'd like to do,
So that's maps, if you like.
what I'd like to do just for the moment is move slightly off the order of the agenda, because there are 2 further questions that are posed towards the end. One discussing how to present the draft plan publicly once approved, which is leaping ahead to the point at which it is approved. And also to discuss the future progress of the plan. And clearly, whilst we have got Phil and Mark here, it seems sensible to put questions to them about those things. Now, you've already mentioned the idea of a town meeting and inviting developers to present to it. Some of us around the table were councillors in the summer of 2015. Some of us may remember that there was to be a public meeting in July of that year, which was called off with approximately 1 hour's notice. And we do not need to go into the whys and wherefores, it's in the past. However, from the point of view of the public, there has been no presentation for the best part of 2 years. In terms of moving things forward, and I know that there are statutory processes which I want to look at as part of 04, if you like, but in terms of trying to engage with the public to try to make sure that when we do go out to formal consultation and thereafter to referendum, we have the best possible chance of actually getting a positive vote, we will need to, quote unquote, sell this to the public. And I just wonder whether you have a view about whether what is done is a presentation in which the developers come and they explain what they are going to develop, what it'll look like, what they're giving the town, that sort of thing, plus perhaps some presentations around things like green space and of course the recreation routes and so on. And is it presented as a, this is what it's going to be? Or are we going to say to the public that we invite comment? Because the risk is that not having invited comment for a long time, people might be a bit disgruntled if they feel it's a fait accompli. The problem with actually allowing people to comment at this stage of the game is that if suddenly it became apparent that when they see it in black and white, for the sake of argument, they take one look at this and say, actually, rather than having development there, and there, we'd rather have 300 up Benefit North for the sake of argument. It's going to drive coach and horses through this. So I just wonder in terms of how you envisaged putting the thing to the town.
Well, nothing at the moment, because the next stage after the town council have accepted our work as being their work,
If
we then
so, you should put it.
we then put the whole plan to the NPers group, which is a government-run body of inspectors, who will look at what we've got and give us advice. It's not part of the official procedure, it's just something that we reckon is the right thing to do, because they will then say, your plan's good, your plan stinks, or we suggest you look at this or look at that. So really we can't get too deep until we get the NPers people sorted, which starts tomorrow, doesn't it? If you say that
Only
it's
if they're
worthwhile,
happy.
yeah. But we can't leave that for too
How
long.
long would that process take? Once the
At
town
the moment it's
council
taking
has...
about 2 weeks.
Oh, so it's only a couple of weeks.
But I would say as well that I think in answer more directly to your question, this has to be supported wholeheartedly by the council if it goes to the public. It has to be an holistic approach to selling this to the town. It's not about housing development, it's actually about the benefits for the town. It has to be turned on its head to be positive. Otherwise, you know, it will fail. You cannot ask anybody to digest this, the general public to digest it. Everybody will come in and say, I don't want those houses there. They're all going to say, you know what
That's
they
why
said.
next door field, you're not building there.
It's
We know.
you can guarantee it. Nobody can digest this. We've spent 8-10 years doing this and we're only just working it out. So
How do you think the public feels about, I mean, were there any Section 106 promises from previous developments that have not materialised or not materialised in the way that people expected, or, you know,
Don't know.
because
You
that's...
tell me, it's your town.
Well,
Can I say?
I'm asking that because
Well,
I'm hearing from
I-
people that they say, all of these things have been built, but we haven't seen any upgrade in the sewers, we haven't seen any, we've seen just,
It doesn't
you
work.
know, that, you know, I'm just reflecting.
It depends on what sort of 106 money you're talking
Exactly.
about.
Well,
It's
I
not
don't-
106
I don't-
money for utilities. Because the utilities, like
But the
sewerage
public doesn't
and
understand
water,
that.
it's a national
That's
thing,
the thing.
That's
and
the
it's
problem.
law they have
Yeah.
to do it.
I think you
And-
have to present it to the town as a fait accompli, I'm afraid.
I agree.
Because the other thing is as well, you can't just say, or you can do whatever you like, the town can do what it likes here, but if it then goes, well actually we want to halve the number, because that's what the town says, it will fail, because there's no evidence to support it, and you have to start again.
Could,
You know,
is there any mitigation in things like, because again, from the existing developments that's still to be finished, a lot of the complaints are about the amount of construction traffic that moves up and down the roads, destroys the curbs, destroys other
The
things.
mitigation's easy.
So,
It's an easy one. If you do not take on board something like this, it will happen anyway. And it could happen in a much greater, uncontrolled manner.
but is there anything that we can have built into this plan that says, that controls the way
Yes.
that traffic is
Not so much that, but you,
routed, or the hours it comes in, and
if you take the adoption of the plan, let's take it forward. Let's say it's all adopted. The council, then, it's the council's obligation to manage the plan. And there's certain powers and certain means by which the council manages it. So this council will manage it. So you do have some control, but you can't stop construction traffic because there are.
well, it's not stopping it, but it's how it can be managed in a way which
Yeah.
is because all of, I take your point about we need to sell what are the benefits, because we've got to have a plan. We've got, I'm just sort of trying to
Yeah,
reflect
sure.
what I think will come from listening to people. But if this can be done in such a way that we can show that we've thought about, or there's ways to manage all the profits going to the developers. There's some money going to the development of the town. This is how people are thinking. And what are we actually? We're going to have to put up with 3, 4, 5 years worth of more traffic going through.
You will do
That's
But you will do anyway.
Well,
It's the mitigation. Actually, it's not a difficult one to mitigate. It will happen. This is, 1,200 houses came to us.
yeah, I understand.
Potentially, ENC and the government, the way it's going, there could be 12,000 houses here. We can't scaremonger, we can't say that. But what we can do is this is at least a means in which we can control where development happens. The town council has a mechanism, ENC has a mechanism to
And
control
county have a
development.
mechanism because they handle roads
Yeah.
on construction traffic.
But it's immensely difficult.
It is. I'm just anticipating.
No, sure. It's
Councillor Spark.
Really, in response to Councillor Chappell's question, what happens if we give the town a question and answer session, and they come back and suggesting that we look at development in a different pattern to the pattern we've currently got? I think the answer to that is we went to the town in the first place. We went for a public questionnaire where they were asked, one of the questions they were specifically asked was, would you rather have everything in one big dollop on one
What did they say?
site?
Anywhere but my house.
Well, but they said spread it around. I mean, that came out of the answers. Spread it around. We don't want one massive development somewhere. Let's have a few here, a few there, a few there. Spread it round proportionately.
You're right, Roy. We have to ask
so-
them the questions,
Yeah.
but we don't want any answers.
If they come back with that one, if they come back with that, that is the answer, surely, that this has already been taken on board. They've already had their say. We've worked on their say. That's where we started. When I was on the neighbourhood plan, that's what we were looking at. That's where we were. They've had
We're no
their,
different from
David,
David.
we've had their comments, taken them on board, and we've answered.
But it is actually referred to specifically in the
Yes.
wording of this document.
yes. And David is absolutely right, and but it is really unfortunate. The stall in 2015 has caused a big problem here. It's the elephant in the room, and it caused a problem because it's 2 years on.
Yep.
And 2 years on, but not hearing anything means that the continuity has failed. And that's what we're up against. If we presented in 2015 exactly this document, but it was better supported now, it's much better prepared, if we presented that, it's the same document, there's nothing has changed in terms of this.
Councillor Evans.
I think your observation that we present the fait accompli is the absolute right one. Because otherwise we're just going to chase our backsides
You can
forever.
consult, you can consult the
Neville
town
is
without asking them
I'm afraid.
questions.
It dies, it's always at that moment.
No,
Nobody will do it again.
No, exactly. No, but look, I worked on 2020 all those years ago, and I think, you know, it's just rumbled along, and you've got to do a fait accompli. I don't
Well, it's
think.
what the town has asked for. Councillor
I-
Marks has made it absolutely clear,
absolutely
it's
right.
what the town has asked
I
for,
agree
we've
with-
translated it as best as we humanly can.
I agree with him entirely, and your good self.
I've got a question, and this document here, it says Regulation 14, whatever that is, consultation draft. Well, if you're consulting people, you can expect comments, can't you? And you've got to answer them.
It's consultation to,
Right, perhaps at this stage,
We're going to get on to
I
that.
will answer that because
Yeah.
that's part of this process that we're going to work through. So we have the NPs, they come back with any helpful suggestions, comments, etc., which hopefully doesn't lead to any significant change to what we've got here. We have a presentation to the public, which is not part of the formal consultation. Presentation to the public with our partners. It's a word we were very careful to adopt at a very early stage. This is, in my experience, a unique neighbourhood plan in that, as a group, we've reached out to developers and tried to bring them with us. Frankly, there was no alternative because with 1,200 places applied for, we were in danger of having a kind of all-out war if we didn't find a way of essentially pacifying the vast majority of the applicants, and to some extent.
but when
This
their
has been
sites
designed
are,
to do
it's
that.
important to say, you know, keep it on the record that the sites were very, very similar from the point of view of their quality standards. I think that is important.
They
It's
were
not
ident-
pacifying, it's pacifying once we've established those sites were almost identical
Yes.
in terms of
There
what they've
weren't,
got.
there weren't many that could be ruled out completely.
No, and they were identified a long time ago.
So,
They were identified at least 10 years ago.
They're
right?
different, they're different sites, different ways of doing it.
Well,
So what we-
but there was this.
Forget that, that's gone by
Okay,
long.
all right.
let's concentrate on where we're going rather than where we've been. So we have our NPs. We
If
then
we
are
forget
able
that
to.
sorted by the end of April,
Well, that may be
maybe.
being a bit optimistic, but let's see. We have that whenever it is. We then have a public presentation of the plan along the lines that you discussed.
maybe sometime in May.
At that point, is the next stage a prescribed route? I mean, I know the answer to this question.
Yes, there is
I want
a
everybody else to
There
know
is a, there is a
what
prescribed
the
official
laid down
route,
route is
but we
to
can't
get
get to
from.
that yet. There is a route whereby when we have done the consultation and the town council then accepts it and that consultation proves it's all okay as far as the public is concerned, that document then gets sent to ENC for onward transmission to an inspector who will take 2 months to look at the report and make sure it's good, bad or indifferent and report on it and either say change this, change that, or that's beautiful. And having done that, it then goes to a town referendum.
Is there not a 6-week formal consultation phase when the plan is published for comment? That's my understanding.
Oh, I can't remember that.
Well, I think it's down to roughly what we want to do. I don't think that's written in law or in the plan.
I think the
We
draft
do a
was,
consultation with the town and give them a couple of weeks to come back if they want to comment on
if
anything.
I'm correct here, I think David's, I think the draft plan, NPS is an in-between role. Once that comes back from that, if it is then effectively adopted or the town wants to do that, at that point then it is public knowledge. Before the presentation, I think there was a 6-week
Yeah.
period. I
Yeah.
do believe you're right that there's a period of
I
time.
seem to remember saying all that. The only question I've got to ask is, if we put a referendum out, if it wins by one vote, do we win?
Yes.
The
Yes.
short answer is yes,
Yes,
because
it's a democracy.
it's an absolute majority. It's a bit like Brexit. They didn't say, oh, you've got to carry 60% of those
This is what I was
voting or
asking,
something like that.
really.
It is a simple
We're
majority
ahead of ourselves
of
there.
those who vote. So if we have a 30% turnout and 51% of the 30% say yes, we're there. Councillor Sparks.
It's just worried me what I've been hearing about timescales of we'll hopefully do this by end of April, do this by end of May. Before that problem in 2015, I sat in a neighbourhood plan meeting where there was an almighty rush that night. There were those in the room urging caution, let's take our time, let's go back to people and check again and check again. And others who were saying, we've done it, it's ready, let's go. We want to get out there, we want this doing, we want it doing by this date and that date, if we miss it. What I fear is, if we set a time scale that's, I can see, we don't want this to drag on, but at the same time, we need to allow enough time. And we need to allow time for things to happen and for the odd stumble along the way. Because that's where we went horribly wrong last time. Somebody felt we had a bit of indecent haste and objections were raised, and that's what led to all of this. And here we are 2 years on, no further forward, effectively. Done a lot of work.
You've got to measure.
You're absolutely right.
I accept a lot of work has been done. There's a lot of blanks been filled in that 2 years. I wasn't suggesting that you've done nothing in 2 years, but what I'm saying is we are no further forward in that we are still at that point. We are saying we need to go and tell the town, then we need to go and do this, that and the other, and then a referendum.
My suggestion is that we've got to wait for NPs to approve what we're doing. There's no point in talking about anything else until they say our planet is sound.
And of course, in order to get to that point, there has to be an acceptance within the council of the document. Now, in terms of the document, it's obviously a pretty weighty document, this. And I don't know how many people have had a chance to read it thoroughly.
I've had a jolly good try.
There are, for example, simple drafting changes that need to be made. There are mistakes within it. And there are one or two things, I've seen phrases in there and thought, well, what does that actually mean? If the council wants to come back to you, James Wilson, we may need to talk about Mr. Wilson's role here, and say, we'd like to change, I'm not at the moment talking about the specifics of the policies themselves, but say drafting issues within the document. I can see that process, but that could be done comparatively quickly. I mean, I've already sort of looked through it. I haven't actually started putting the red pen
We
to it
already
yet.
accept that under NPs we might have some changes to make.
Yeah.
There's no problem about making other changes that you guys feel ought to be in there.
So there are two possible types of change. There is what I might call a simple drafting change, which is relatively straightforward. But there are a considerable number of policies in this document, including extremely specific, site-specific policies, for example, in terms of development. And I can imagine that as a group, there is going to be a desire, as Councillor Sparks has already said, and to some extent Councillor Chesser was intimating from the start in terms of when she received the document and how much time she's had with it. The reality is going to be that the council is going to want to spend a certain amount of time, I'm not going to put a time scale on that necessarily here and now, but a certain amount of time, preferably as little as possible, in coming to a view. If there was a kind of a fundamental difficulty with a policy, be it a particular site or be it something else, I don't know, just for the sake of argument, let's say Miller's Field, site 11. And there was a view that it shouldn't in fact be in the plan at all. I'm not saying that that's my view or anything else, but let's just suppose that happened. My understanding of the way in which this is being done is that discussions have taken place with all the various potential developers. Most of them have offered probably more than the minimum. If we regard the minimum as a contribution to sort of cycleways and footpaths, there are things like cemetery extensions, allotments, festival fields. There is a quite big an area of land off Herne Road for potential sporting use, etc., etc. I can imagine there would be difficulty approaching a developer and saying, you know what we discussed with you and how we intimated we were going to agree X, Y and Z, well actually we don't want to agree that now. And either we don't want to agree anything or we want to agree something very different. Given your experience of negotiating with these people, do you think there are likely to be difficulties to such an extent that it would ultimately be unwise for us to actually start putting red lines through some specific policies? Because I think we all want to know that question.
I'm afraid I don't think you can.
I don't
Because
think you can.
you've asked us to do this on behalf of the town. It is not the council's remit to say whether it's right or wrong and you want to adopt it, or ask us to go back and start again, go back to the public, and we would have to start the mechanism again. You can't go striking through things because
all of those policies, nearly all of them are in the core spatial strategy, and they've been taken out of there and put into our plan.
So you're talking about site-specific policies, I think in
Yes, I mean,
specific, sorry.
just to take my silly
I think the
example
point
of a
is that
particular site.
it would be very undemocratic if this group, as in yourselves or the town council, said, well, we don't want that site to go in. Because we have, all of us, and you've been involved in it, everybody's been involved in it in times, have done it for the best interest of the town, and then to just strike it out for whatever reason, without going back to the town and going through the whole process again, is just not the right mechanism, and it would be severely criticised, and then I think it would fail.
Councillor Chappell, I'm just a bit concerned that something we covered a few minutes ago has only ever been discussed in closed session. And we detailed a few minutes ago some items which I don't think have ever been put to the public, and we are recording the meeting which will go on in public domain.
Let me say that I did raise the issue about whether any or all of this meeting should take place under Standing Order 3, and Councillor Stern's view was that this should be an on-the-record public meeting.
There's nothing we said so far that they shouldn't know.
I don't disagree with that view. Whether if we get down to discussing very sort of specific things that have an impact on Fred, who we know is proposing a plan, and where there are clear sort of commercial issues at stake, it may well be that if the next process after tonight is some sort of a meeting at which something like that may happen, then it may be that some part or parts of that meeting may well be conducted in that way. But at the moment, there has to come a time when we are conducting openly, and I think it's probably right, and I'll be stopped if I'm wrong here. There was a time when the discussions were going on with each developer individually, so that developer A didn't know what was happening in our discussions with developer B, who didn't know what was happening with developer C. My understanding is that as part of the approach to developing this, all the developers are aware of everything. That is to say, they're all aware of what the other sites are, what numbers are being talked about, who's offering what. It's a very, very open process now. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Well, it is
in the sense of whether you still have a
public
concern.
knowledge, it is out of closed session, it's out of closed door. But
Is it-
our
is it
stance
that-
as a neighbourhood group will be that this is what we're putting forward, and unless it goes back to the town properly, and we go back to the effectively start or a midpoint, we're not just going to knock it out, we will step aside. And because that's what, we've done this for the town, that's why we're saying it in open, and we're quite happy to do that. We've done the best for the town here.
The only point, David, I think you missed there is that it wouldn't probably be right for the public to hear everything that we're saying until the town council have approved the plan. It's their plan, they have to approve it. And it being filtered out to everyone before town council said, well, we don't like it or whatever.
Don't like it, don't worry about it.
That was the only rider that I had said to, apart from that, we should be all open and we can do it now because commercial interests have disappeared.
One or two of the facilities, if you like, amenities that were packaged in with all of this development would have been specific to individual developers.
Yes,
Um,
but they all know
that's-
it now. We told
All the
them.
developers know it,
Yes.
but the town don't know it as yet. I mean,
No.
if it's okay, I
We
mean,
can't tell
are
the
they
town
telling?
because it's
Are they
town
telling the
council
town?
budget.
I mean, are they making known what they've offered?
I've no idea.
I mean,
No,
this
we've
is
only-
this is
I
all.
haven't had any feedback to suggest that any of the developers are doing that. I think that they are probably waiting for the public meeting that we spoke about a little while ago for them to make their pitch.
We keep telling them there's going to be
We
one.
had to tread very carefully in estates on Tuesday night because there were one or two issues coming up involving estates where some of the answers may be in the neighbourhood plan. And, you know, it's a case of what do? We need to know whether they are or are not in neighbourhood plan. We were not, we were skirting round it. And it's that sort of situation, I
We
think.
might have to do it again.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. But I just didn't want that recording to go out in the public domain and for people to...
It's going to be your choice.
Yeah.
It'll be your choice, I mean, we're not.
We hadn't
We
asked for
don't
a closure of the
know
meeting, which is
everything that we've
the
done.
point the clerk has made to me, that we haven't asked for the meeting to close while we're
Turn
discussing.
the recording off until you formally approve
Yeah.
that.
The important thing to remember is that we're preparing this on behalf of the town for yourselves.
Yes.
And the other thing is that we are actually elected representatives of the town, full stop.
The process, as everybody realises and has said, and just to sort of reiterate, has been, this is what we followed all the way through. We followed the process all the way through. Unfortunately, there has been a 2-year delay. And that is the thing that is going to cause the most problem. And that's why everybody's saying, and quite understandably, can we look at this again? Should we look at this again? Because there's 2 years. In 2015, nobody was saying that. We were going to the town. It has not changed. Minor details have changed, whilst we've been bolstering the paperwork.
As soon as we mentioned
Plan
there
has
could be
not
1,200 houses, if we don't have a plan, I think everyone will go, yes, please, we'll have some of that.
changed. I mean, there will have to be a huge amount of PR if you adopt this. If you want to
No,
adopt this and take it forward,
I-
the PR needs to be massive.
I've taken this on board big time.
You know, that's, you've got to
And
say it to the town.
and also about how you do it, the means that you do it,
Yeah.
the mechanisms, do you do posters, do you do a big
I think
meeting
the
in the
specifics
QVH?
of some of that are probably arguably for another day.
They are.
Yes.
And I think you're also, you are limited to what you can do as well, aren't you? You're limited, I think you're limited about how much you can spend on advertising PR, and I think you're limited the time that you have to actually do that.
Again, we're jumping the gun.
That's it.
Town council have to approve it in full, and MPs have to give us their say so. From that, we can meet again and decide the actual action time.
And so, I'll be with you in 1 second.
Okay.
I just want to follow that up for a minute. So when the town council has reached a view, whether that's tonight, next week, next month, whenever it is, and off we go to MPs,
We're suggesting go to MPs tomorrow.
Oh,
We haven't had a chance.
Well, that's something we'll debate in that case, because I wasn't envisaging that. But anyway, at some point it will go to them, and presumably that will be dealt with by our clerk on our behalf. We'll get their feedback. And I anticipate that in the light of that feedback, the planning committee will want to meet with you again
Yes.
to discuss that feedback and what it means for us.
Or the full council, whatever
Or the
you
full-
decide.
or however the
And some typos, we
We
can sort
do
some
that.
typos out and some tweaks, you know, that's not an issue.
Indeed. Just whilst I think of it, before I go back to Councillor Sparks, I mentioned James Wilson a few minutes ago. James Wilson, for anybody who isn't aware, was the consultant that we engaged in connection with the writing up of the plan, as opposed to Marine Planning, who helped us with things around site assessment in particular. And the early aspects of public consultation and so forth. Is James going to be involved any further in this process?
If you pay him, yes.
And would you be recommending that we should be paying him to do something? And if
Yes.
so, what?
Well,
Just say, I would,
Can I have an answer to that question before? And then
no,
I'll-
The answer will be on that, depends what you come back with. Because we were going to say no, we were going to put it to NPs, wait for them to turn around and say, yes, it's a stable plan or it's an unstable plan, and then it would be, then we could actually refine the draft. But if you want to refine the draft first, and then we go to NPs, that's fine, but we may have to get James back in, depending on what the refinements are. So it's a bit chicken egg, really.
Okay. Councillor Sparks first, Councillor
I
Oates.
think before it goes to NPs, it's got to go to town council, full council, and I think, in all honesty, part of that session will have to be in closed session. I honestly believe part of that discussion is going to have to be in closed session, and I can't see how we can avoid it.
May well be.
I think I'm going to ask that the
It's
part
open-
of this is discussed in
It's
closed
open
session
to
on
anybody
the...
to propose that happens, and if it's
Well,
seconded and passed, that's what
I will
happens.
propose
I
it.
will, I'll happily
That's
second that. I think it should go to full council, personally.
I don't think there's any question of it not going to full council. Indeed, if you look at our agenda, it says to discuss the draft
Yeah.
plan and
Yeah.
consider whether to recommend the
does.
plan as drafted to the full town council for its approval or to propose amendments to the plan. Now,
I don't
perhaps
believe
if
it
we
should
just
go
go,
anywhere else until full
just go
council
back
approved
to
it.
that, it may well be thought that even before it goes to full council, the planning committee, whose terms of reference include basically stewardship of the neighbourhood plan and thus recommending to full council, if we take a view, and stress if we take a view that we don't want to recommend anything at this point, we want to actually have more time to look at this document and come to a view about our recommendation, then I suppose the reality is that in order to keep momentum going, we will need to arrange a further special meeting with one item again in effect on the agenda, which is what is currently on this agenda at 1672.02.
Yeah.
Councillor Oates.
I just think that we've come so far now, to fail at the last hurdle would be terrible. I think we've got to cough the money out.
There's no question of failure.
No.
None whatsoever.
Well,
I don't think there's any question of failure, and
no,
I'm not sure
but
at this stage it's a
I'm-
question of coughing up money. What is
Exactly.
actually required
That's
is
what I'm
somebody
saying.
looking at page 25 of this document, and I don't pick it for any reason other than the fact it's the first page that sort of fell open, and look at it and say, you know, is there anything on that about which we either want to ask questions, which we may not be in a position to do tonight in that level of detail, because people haven't had enough chance possibly to study it to that degree, or to suggest wording revisions rather than wholesale alterations to any particular policy. There's no key to page 25, I could have said any page number at all of the 51 I think we're on here.
I think you've got to be very careful, David, if you're doing that, because a lot of those phrases are couched in pure planning terms.
I
that
appreciate
we don't
that.
necessarily understand, and they have a reflection upon other areas of the plan, so I wouldn't recommend you looking at it and trying to change it unless it's fairly obvious typographical errors. I think
A,
what
there
the
are
basic-
some.
If
B,
we're
there
looking
are
at
some.
it, we have to
I mean, B,
understand
there
it.
are some drafting issues. There are also some arguably factual issues that may need looking at because they may not be entirely correct. And of course, if we have a query about what something means, then the answer is we're going to ask what does it mean and ask for somebody to tell us before we're going to either say we're happy with it or we're not. What we're not going to do is say we're happy with it if we don't even understand it. So you know, that we need to be clear about.
I think the best thing you can do is to go through it then, and to make a list. I think all we would ask is, because we're sort of got to a point where we've actually drafted this, not saying we're tired, but we're at a point where we want the momentum to keep going, and if it drags on too long, we are really going to just struggle to carry
Well,
this
I'm aware
forward.
that you've been meeting, with me 1 second,
Yep.
meeting weekly to get to the stage that we're at tonight.
Yeah.
And I am incredibly grateful to all the people involved in that process because it has been an enormous issue. And I will give way because if the clerk's waiting, I think we're at me. I really think I need
I
to
think if
listen.
you are going to go away and read it, I think obviously all the councillors should have a chance to read it, but I think probably a smaller group should sit down and go through it. And probably if anybody has got any comments, they can either send them in to me so I can pass them on to the planning committee. Otherwise, you're going to trying to have 10 people.
Well, I'm certainly not suggesting that it's all the councillors. It could be the whole planning committee, or it could be that 2 or 3 people
Yeah,
from the
well, I think
planning
it's probably
committee
better of 2 or 3. But obviously get the comments.
engage in that process. One thing is for sure, I'm not leaving this room tonight until we know exactly what the process is going to be, and we've set some sort of a time scale in mind for the very reason that Mark mentions, and that is, frankly, it's not fair on other people who put so much effort into it. If suddenly we think, oh, thankful for that, we've got it now, and then sort of 2 months later we're thinking, well, shall we look at it tonight?
Sorry, I've got one quick comment. Probably if you do that with a small group, it might be better having either Mark or Phil there, because if there are any things that you're unsure of there and then,
Maybe
if they're there, they can say, well, the reason we
Or
put that
just
in.
5 or 6 of you getting together and brainstorming it, going through it, and you're not going to agree on everything, you know, I promise you now. You will not do that. There will be a site that will irritate you, there will be something, but you've got to look at it holistically, look at it for the town as we have. You know, and that's the key to this. You know, when you look at the survey, we looked at the survey very closely and some analysis on the survey, and certain postcodes objected to the sites closest to them, ironically, and they suggested the best sites were the furthest away. So, who's to say you would be any different, but you have to look at it holistically and globally for the town. This is really important, and look at the big picture, and don't get hung up on little bits. The little bits are 8 or 10 years of work here, not just my work or Phil's. You know, a lot of people in this room have had work on it, and I think if you take that approach, you will come to an answer, yay or nay, and be able to go forward with it.
I just want to say is do we need to have some kind of resolution, for example, though, to spend the additional money on the authoring? Is that
We don't
that's one of the
short answer is I don't know whether there will be any need for re-authoring or further
Well, I don't
authoring
know
until we've
either,
had this
but I-
discussion.
Yeah.
But what we can't do is vote on it tonight anyway, because it's not on an agenda, and if we do, it'll be something for full
okay,
council.
but it's a question I think is important.
There is money in budget, so for neighbourhood planning, so if we need further funds, I am sure that we will be in a position to access them. But at the moment, actually, what we need is a certain amount of time and enthusiasm in order to go through this document and either give it the thumbs up exactly as is, or as is probably more likely to give it the thumbs up subject to 1 or 2 minor tinkerings that are not massive in terms of suddenly saying, well, we don't like site X, or we don't like this policy on recreation, or whatever else it is. Clearly, if there was a very strong feeling that there was something we were unhappy with, I think we're going to end up having to engage with Mark and Phil and their group again and discuss what it is that our problem is and see if there is a way around it. Because we have to, and one thing is absolutely clear, at the end of this process, the council should be singing with one voice publicly, whatever the song that we're singing. Because if it appears there is significant division on the council, it is going to be stunningly difficult to sell it to the public. If it appears that the council is really behind this and has seen the merits of it, and you know, it is really interesting to see just what we get out of this. Unlike a lot of plans, where there is nothing on the face of it, it simply says, oh, put a development in that field. And that's about the extent of some of the plans. This goes so much further. It is so ambitious. I think we need to in a sense, match that ambition.
That's what I hope the song then is the funeral march.
Right. Okay, now, in terms of practicalities, we've talked at we received the plan, and we've asked a number of questions around it. We've discussed, as far as we probably can, about presenting it publicly, which is certainly going to involve us being happy, NPS, comments, whatever, and then some form of public presentation, and then we'll see where we go at the end of that process. And in a sense, to discuss the future progress of the plan, we'll see that is statutory, it's laid down, and we just have to follow the procedures through when we are ready to do so, which hopefully
you've got from James in the document.
It's all set out for us, and we have the guidance, and our clerk will make absolutely sure that we don't go off on a tangent and do the wrong thing at the wrong time, or fail to do something we should.
Blame you, then.
Don't
So
blame me.
we'll blame the clerk, or ENC, or anybody but me, basically. It won't be my fault. So, it takes us back to discussion and whether to recommend the plan as drafted. Now, I suspect, and if I'm being presumptuous, please tell me so, but I suspect that the feeling tonight may be that we may not feel able, as a group, this evening, those of us who are on planning, to actually say, yes, we are going to recommend it, or no, we're not. I suspect that people are going to say what we do want is to sit down and work our way through it. If that's the case, two ways of doing that. One, seems to me, it's the whole of the planning committee, or two, we set up a subcommittee for the purpose of the planning committee, which could involve inviting the mayor, depending on what the mayor's view is, because the mayor is the very public face of the town council. Now, I appreciate we are actually working towards the end of a year, and there will have to be a debate at some point about what happens and whether or not continuity is going to be key, but it's not necessarily a debate for tonight. Apart from anything else, the mayor is too close to me. She could whack me around the head. She doesn't like where this is leading. But, all joking apart, do we feel, yes, we've all had a chance to read it, we're confident enough to just say, in principle, yes, we're happy? Do we want some more time? And if we are having more time, is the inclination to have the whole committee do it, or some form of subcommittee? And I'm almost inclined to literally walk around the room and say, a view.
I think we should have a bit more time. You can't just read something that's landed 2 days ago, effectively. And I think the planning committee isn't that big, is it?
Yeah.
To be fair, that would probably, be about the size of group, I think.
Right.
Well, I've only just come back on planning, so I've not digested it. So I would need more time. But I would just think, if there's anyone in particular, I'm thinking, looking at Roy actually, it being estates, would want to be on the group to review it, then I'd be happy with that.
T'other rogues.
No comment, Chair.
Not sure you have a say at this point.
Subcommittee?
A subcommittee of some sort.
Yeah, I think so. When we meet in planning, I mean, we have actually not been quorum on one occasion, so
2019.
I'm quite happy to serve on a subcommittee to look at it. I've actually looked at it in general terms, and it does need a little wee few tweaks here, there and everywhere, but a lot of that's just syntax and grammar and stuff.
It could be the group of us tonight, since we've turned up to.
Oh,
I think this
crikey.
is for too many. I think otherwise you'll sit for
I'll
hours.
keep
We'll
going
be here
around the
forever.
table.
Yeah.
I have to say, I tend to agree with the clerk. I think the trouble with committees of this size is that they
No,
it
you'll
becomes
never get-
difficult
yeah.
to get enough focus because there are too many differing views, and sometimes a committee probably of 3 is about ideal in some respects.
I think what you could do is you could say, right, you give yourself a time limit, looking this through. You have a week to have a look at it. If you've got any comments, send them in.
Can I
And then this small
I think
group
that's-
will look at them.
Our group worked its socks off to get to this meeting tonight, to get this in a shape that we want to get to you, and we really want you to deal with this swiftly now, in the same manner. It's really important. It's the next 12 years of this council.
But you've done a huge amount of work, and it does take time to absorb it, so.
No, I totally understand that, but it is important we keep the momentum going. And
I'll
that's-
just keep going
It's difficult
round.
to see us doing any more work,
No.
because we've done it.
I'm just going to keep going around the room because we've got so far. Councillor Sparks, do you have a view?
I've got grave reservations that we're rushing headlong into the same disaster we had in 2015. Seriously, very seriously worried that we're heading for the same disaster. I think it's got to go to full council. Part of that's got to be in closed session, because there are some things that have got to be discussed there. And then after that, yes, have a working group look at it, but I don't think it should be going to NPS tomorrow or anywhere else tomorrow until it's been to full council, and full council have decided how they want to take this forward and how they want to respond to it.
Right. That's 3 different strands so far.
Well, I'm not on the planning committee, so, but, yes.
I'm
it's-
inviting a view from everybody who's here.
Okay. There's a huge amount of work in this. I agree, certainly what Councillor Sparks is saying, but I think we need to be able to absorb and ask questions before we go to council. Otherwise we're just wasting time there and talking. It's like going round in circles.
We've been doing that for 8 years.
Well, to be honest, I quite like the clerk's suggestion about us putting some comments in within the space of a week. You know, but before a week today, we put our own comments in for the people in this room.
But to the council, not
Well, can I make a suggestion? Because there doesn't seem to be an entire consensus here, other than the fact that I don't think anybody is that keen on making decisions tonight.
We are.
I suspect, other than
But you know it all backwards.
other than
We
the
don't.
2 of you, but
Yeah.
you have the advantage of most people in this room of having known what was in here for some time. A lot of people in this room didn't know what they were likely to be
I feel
seeing.
I know it quite well, actually.
So, it may be that a way forward would be for any of the councillors who are present tonight to feed any feedback to me as chair of the planning committee. And then as chair of the planning committee, if that involves talking with Councillor Stern and his group, I will. If it looks as if we might then be in a position as a planning committee to recommend something to full council, then that can be done. Now, having said that can be done, it would either have to be done at the next planning meeting, which of course isn't now scheduled until practically a month's time,
Yeah.
or we have to set up a special planning meeting sometime after this week's process has gone by.
When is the next full council meeting?
The next full council meeting would be
18.
2 weeks.
18th, I think it is.
Now, whether as a planning committee in the space of 13 days, which seems to
2
be
weeks.
Easter,
Be difficult because you've got
It's
Easter.
Easter.
I actually think it will be quite difficult to put this before full council on the 18th, what we may have to think about, because of that delay, would be whether we ask for an extraordinary meeting of the full council just to look at this
Yeah.
as soon as the planning committee is ready to make its recommendation, because otherwise I'm conscious if we just stick to an ordinary meeting schedule, before we know it we're going to be at the end of May,
Yeah.
and Mark and Phil will be tearing what is left of their greying hair out, because they'll feel that nothing's happened. And so maybe that is the answer. Anybody who feels inclined to comment on any aspect of the draft, get their thinking back to me, and then
Within a week.
within a week, and then I'll take a view as to where that
1 week,
leaves us.
7 days.
Should we do that together? You want me to hold your hand over that?
Quite happy to discuss it with the mayor, if other people think that it would be a good idea for the mayor and I to do it.
Well, that gets me off the hook.
Yeah.
Fine.
What's the date?
Okay,
Today.
so
6.
It's the 6th.
So you'll be able to get answers. If we have specific questions, you'll be able to get answers.
13, sorry?
13th.
If we've got specific questions, you will provide us with the answers.
Well, if you've got questions, ask the question. If I think I can answer the question, and I have been very, very involved in this process for a long time, fine. If I don't know the answer, I will approach Councillor Stern. And if it's a really technical question to which the only way of getting an answer is to go to James Wilson, then we'll find a budget to go to James Wilson for questions. I mean, I don't want to do that unless we have to, but if we have to, we have to. Because it is important that councillors understand what's in here in order to take a view about, is this something the council is going to back as it is, or is it going to suggest any particular revisions, whatever they might be.
My only point is to say that if we have to go to James Wilson, should we not vote this evening to say that we will spend the money?
We can't, because there's nothing on the agenda to permit it. What we could do, however, is we could put it on the agenda for full council.
Exactly, I was just
And
about to say that.
If we don't need to do that, because it doesn't appear as if we do, we don't have to do it. But we can always pass a budget, which we may or may not spend.
Exactly.
So it's a sort of contingency.
Yeah, we've got a grant, locality grant approved as well,
Yeah,
which
So-
will come in the next couple of
Yeah.
weeks.
Which will pay for the consultant.
yeah. So, you know,
I
I
just
don't
want
think we need to be too worried about funding Mr Wilson if we feel that it's essential to raise certain things with him as opposed to with Councillor
I
Stern.
am
Mental NPs again, as far as we're concerned.
I'm not suggesting that we pay him, I'm just suggesting that we need to have that as a contingency.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one final thing. I think while we're looking at this, I guess my recommendation, and I will look at this on the basis of this is the document that we want to take forward. Unless there's something fundamental that we are really concerned about, I think we have to presume that it is the document that we would like to adopt. That's the way I will look at it. And unless there's something inside it that is not.
You've got no choice.
Well, that's what I mean. That's the point. That's the point.
Can I
That's
ask in a sense a technical question around this NPS thing? You're very keen on the idea that it goes to them ASAP to keep them mental.
There are other reasons for that, which I have said before,
Right.
that we want the neighbourhood plan in the ENC local development document, not just bits of it. We want the whole plan in there. And the only way we're going to do that is if we get the plan sorted within the next couple of months.
Right. Well, supposing that as a group we said fine, okay, put it to NPS, but it then was the case that there were some significant potential revisions to it. Can we go back to NPS again? Is there any problem with saying, oops, since you looked at it, we've done our own review and
Sort it.
changed this, that and the other,
Sort it.
and it can be done?
I mean, what we want to know is it going to stand scrutiny? I mean, you could go through it and say, we do all of these changes, we do all the changes, and then say, well, actually, you've missed that bit anyway. So, you know, it is cart and horse. It's difficult to know. It's, I get it's
But on the
a chicken
face
and
of it,
egg. I
there
think
isn't-
actually it's, they're both.
On the face of it, there isn't a downside to going to MPs, because if they're happy, and if we leave it broadly as is, then we know they're still going to be happy. If they're not happy, then we really need to know why they're not happy, because there's going to have to be changes anyway. So,
It might
on the face of
better
it,
to set-
does there seem to be any reason not to do it?
Well, what it would do is it'd give you a few weeks.
Mm.
In those 2 weeks that it was at NPS, plus you could actually be doing your reviews as well, and then we compile everything when we get back.
The advantage, I suppose, of that would be, if you're saying that the NPS process is 2 weeks, if we were actually looking at it for 2 weeks today, it also does give some time over Easter when I might actually not be in an office working all the time, which may help from the point of view of looking at it.
Yeah, but it's everybody else's commitment too, you know. If everybody's going.
There's almost no point in you guys looking at it until NPS approved it, because they don't approve it.
Yeah.
We've got stuff to get all
Yeah.
Modified
throw our
that.
hands up.
But equally, if we wait for NPS, then we are potentially losing a certain amount of time.
That's why I'm suggesting that we ought to perhaps approach NPS quickly.
So we could do
We're working
NPS,
it
but we
tomorrow.
can also do
We have the draft.
what we've just said. In other words, we can still invite
Bring on
councillors to ask questions, make comments, what have you,
Seems reasonable.
through me, the mayor and I, and then sort of discuss that and see where it's leading us to. And then we'll have a point where A, we've had the feedback from this group, B, we've got the MPS stuff, and by the end of that process, we'll have a much clearer idea where we are.
I
won't we?
like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like
I'm
that
just
very
slightly
much.
afraid, because when you first were talking about MPs, I was feeling being bulldozed, with the sort of, you've got to send it because.
But that's not the case, is it?
Well, I'm not sure. You seem to have
You don't have to do
changed your
it.
tack a bit.
It's a route that we've chosen as recommended by James, because when you've got such a complicated plan as this, no one really knows whether it's right or wrong, because no one's done it, no one's gone to this detail before anywhere. So he said the way that you'll get that sorted the best is if they look at it through MPs. And quite frankly, it will give you the confidence that what we've done is right. So it's a no-brainer, you've got to do it. It's only 350 quid.
I don't know exactly.
So if we did want to resubmit it, there will be a cost implication, because it's going to cost us
But we're going,
250p.
obviously going to find
Yeah,
out,
just
so
heard
we
that
can
bit.
take a view, even if it's minor changes, it's not going to affect the, the actual document
I
anyway.
think that the odd few hundred quid is largely immaterial in something quite as substantial as this.
Absolutely. I mean, you've been at it for 8
On a
years.
very practical note, bearing in mind that there isn't any spending provision in here, and we would be committing the council to spending money.
Well, there's a grant, and
Well,
there's a grant, and there's their own
that's
budget.
being approved.
How much is
But
that?
can this,
7,900,
because
no,
the
something like that.
planning committee doesn't have any
Grant.
spending power at all, which actually may be an error because of the involvement with the neighbourhood plan now, but it has no spending powers in its terms of reference. So,
It has to go to full council.
does it then have to go to full council before we can send it to NPS?
It's got to
Because
go
it's
to
not.
cost. It's got to go to
Absolutely.
cost.
Yes.
Look at the clerk.
Although, if it's under £500, I have the authority to.
There's the answer.
I thought we
The
got.
clerk has sufficient
We can
delegation
do it, we have
authority.
to wait.
I thought we could go to. I thought we could go to £2,000 as a
No,
committee.
not this
Not
committee.
planning,
All right.
There-
other committees.
It's true that estates can, and it's true that finance and general purposes can,
Not this.
but we don't have a spending budget.
We
'Cause
better change that.
if you think about it,
Should
when
we
would
spend
we
any
ever
money,
need
yeah.
to spend any money, except suddenly, of course, now we're doing the neighbourhood plan, perhaps actually there is a rationale
For
to
the
have
sake
it.
of the NPS cost, that's 1 day of the consultant's wage. You either have him for a day to sort it out, or you get the NPS to do it for us. The cost is the same.
Given that the clerk has enough authority to do it, given what you've heard about why we need to do it at some point, and given that I can't actually see a downside to doing it other than the fact that there is a theoretical possibility that if we start wanting to make changes, it might need to go back. But then if we want to make changes, we're going to have to discuss that with
Oh, crikey.
others anyway, if they are
It may
significant
not be us.
changes. I'm not saying, as I said, discuss changes. I'm not saying impose changes, but I don't know. I've no idea where this is going. But does that seem sensible? In which case, it would seem that possibly we could allow people up to 2 weeks to provide us with questions rather than one,
Yeah, one's long enough, it's a holiday period.
which isn't actually, because they'll actually have to do it before the holiday
Well,
period, but this will actually give
Yeah,
you a
but some
chance
people,
During the
to do something over the holiday period as well. If we allow the group 2 weeks to get back to us, but in the meantime we ask the clerk to submit this to MPs as it currently is, kind of warts and all, because we know that there are 1 or 2 things in there that will be changed, even if we're not talking policies. That seems to keep momentum going. We will then hopefully be in a position to decide whether we need to convene a further planning meeting at relatively short notice with a view to feeding something through to full council, which may of itself have to be an extraordinary meeting, just so we don't end up having to leave things to the 3rd week of May, because that's the time scale. If we just stick to our ordinary meeting schedule and we don't hit next week, or not next week, the week after next, which I don't think we will. That seems to make a certain amount of sense.
So
I
you're
appreciate
happy
it's
to
extra meetings.
Go to MPs tomorrow.
Well,
and
I would be
Start the
happy,
process.
provided that
Here.
I'm happy.
I
Yeah.
will, as long as it
Yes.
doesn't commit us.
Why not?
If anybody ever comes back and says, you did it.
My understanding is,
commitment.
this is us consulting a professional.
Yeah.
It would be like taking legal advice, or it's like going to a planning consultant, and we will receive their advice, but it doesn't mean that we've agreed that this
Plan.
document
Yeah,
stands as
absolutely.
is.
Right.
If we want to put a red line through all of it, we could, but I rather suspect
That's
if we
fine.
do, there will be 2 people in this room who probably won't sit down this again.
Are you proposing that, David?
To the
Top paragraph is in here.
Right, this is a part of a letter from James Wilson, well, I say it's a letter, it's the work programme. Task 10, which says make changes from NP's review. A review of the NP's recommendations would be necessary and a decision taken on whether all or any are incorporated within the revised plans. These changes would be made prior to the plan being reformatted and then consulted on as part of the Regulation 14 consultation, which is the formal bit of the consultation process where we have to publish the plan and the public gets a chance to say things about it. So that's where we're at, and my recommendation in the circumstances is that we authorise the clerk to refer this to MPs for review.
Seconded.
All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1. Abstentions?
I actually voted for it.
Oh, did you? Sorry, in that case. Hopefully it's regarded. So I think it's everybody was for it except Councillor Sparks, who was against it. Right. Do we have any other questions or issues that we would like to bring to Mr. Benz or Mr. Stern?
Can we just finish? Because we've got the design statement there as well. Third document of your pile.
Right.
Thank you. Just very briefly, that's all.
This document here, folks.
Just basically, it's gone through a number of revisions over its existence. Started back in 2011, I think it was, believe it or not. Part of the draft neighbourhood plan now refers to the design statement, and it makes it a much more. It bolsters the quality of the design of development, not just housing, but any development within the town. It looks at sustainability, it looks at certain things. It's quite a general document, it's not too specific, but it does relate to the town. It's important you look at that, read it, and because that goes with the draft document, and that supports it. There's amendments can be comfortably made for that. There's it's been developed over the years, and
But we chose to put that in now so that MPs can review that as well.
I see the logic of that.
yeah, that might give you some further support or confidence, I should say, when considering developments, to say, well, actually, they're not going to be poor quality, they may well be a much higher
Well, we're
quality.
saying
Because one of
the
the
houses have
policies
to be high
within-
quality houses,
Yeah.
not cheap rubbish.
Yeah, one of the policies in that document is that development needs to take account of that document, which seems to make sense. I mean, I know we went through a phase where we first told, have separate documents, put them together, take them apart. So I see now it is two separate
It's
documents,
back again.
rather than one, which actually I think in some respects certainly makes it less unwieldy. If you added the 50 odd pages of the one to the 40 pages of the other, you've got a 90-page document. At least this way you've got that one.
And unlike the other document, I think I'm correct in saying that should you wish to make wholesale changes, I don't think that is going to be a huge issue. Whilst it was consulted, I think it was easier to alter it and bolster it or
Yes.
deal with it in that way. So, feel free to put the red pen through it.
I'm not encouraging people to put a red pen through what pens to work. So we're spending a long time on this over a protracted period.
It'd be quite
but
nice
yes.
if you did.
Do look at both documents, and if you have comments about or questions in relation to the design statement, then feed those through to me as well.
So in 2 weeks' time, when you've got all these questions, are you going to talk to us?
If there are questions that I need to come to you with, yes.
Yes.
You're not going away on holiday
No,
in
I
the
just,
period, are
well,
you?
yes I am, but I mean, essentially,
When are you around?
How's
we
he going
need-
to answer your questions if he's not going to be here?
Well, that's what I'm just about to
we
establish.
need to know what to do next. You've gone to MPs, you've mulled it over yourselves, and then you're probably going to decide it has to go to town council after that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We need to know when you're doing that and what you want of us.
that's entirely reasonable. I mean, you've heard what I've said. I think we are going to end up arranging special meetings because if we try to fit this into our ordinary calendar, we're going to end up in the third week of May before we turn around, and it may be possible to bring that forward such that full council may be able to say at a special meeting,
What date, sorry?
probably early May rather than mid or end of May, that we are happy with it.
They put their own plan back.
And at that point,
When they're ready.
if we've then peer review, we can start looking at best way to present publicly. It does not invite, as it were, comment and consultation as such, but is seen as an opportunity for us to sell the plan to the public and the developers hopefully to sell themselves to the public.
This is what we decided, isn't it good?
Okay. Does anybody have any other matters relevant to what we've been talking about tonight, as opposed to any other planning matters?
I would like to
we
thank
had
your
we had a
town
planning
clerk.
meeting 2 nights ago, so we...
I would like to thank your town clerk for the enormous help that she's been in getting this plan to the table.
Yeah.
Particularly over the last couple of months, we've had to spend quite a lot of time.
I'm sure the town clerk will minute that, because it is appropriate. This is a huge team effort, and we want to make
She
sure
would
that
be
we
on the
know.
table if she hadn't done it, because I don't play with them things.
No, we know that.
Right. In the absence of there being any further questions or anybody with any comments, I shall close the meeting at just after 9:20. Thank everybody